Good evening, everybody. I'm in there. I would like to call the Planning and Development Committee to order on this beautiful evening of January 9th. Can I please have a roll call?
Lakaitis.
Here.
Calamaris.
Here.
Leitner. Here. Mongard.
Here.
Bancroft.
Here.
Lencioni. Petrilla.
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Bessner.
Here.
Weber.
Here. Thank you very much. We do not have any omnibus vote for tonight, so first up is item 4A. We have a presentation by Russell and Peter Sewer regarding the PUD for a preliminary plan for the First Street Plaza expansion.
Yes, good evening. The committee was last updated on this project back in November. Following that update, staff proceeded with the PUD review process, which includes reviews and recommendations from the Historic Preservation Commission and Plan Commission. And the application for PUD preliminary plan approval is now being presented to the P&D committee for recommendation. So this application would approve a new plan for the First Street PUD project to show improvement of First Street right-of-way from Walnut to the north as a pedestrian corridor and an expanded area of plaza located north of the existing plaza where a building had previously been planned at the corner of First and Main Streets. The Historic Commission reviewed the plan regarding the impact to the Historic District, and they unanimously recommended approval and offered 4 recommendations to the Plan Commission, which are discussed in detail in the staff report. The Plan Commission reviewed the plan and unanimously recommended approval. They did not provide any specific approval conditions, but commissioners complimented the overall design and discussed a number of topics, which included location and facilities to host performances of different types and sizes, accommodations for bicycle parking near the plaza, the durability of the materials to be used, and adding accent lighting to enhance the pergola. They also discussed providing a drop-off point at Walnut and First Street intersection at the turn. And based on this feedback and other feedback that's been received during the process, staff is reviewing modifications to increase the size of this pull-off area and create some additional space both for drop-off and pickup. Additionally, there was interest expressed regarding planning for outdoor dining. Last week, staff coordinated a meeting with the First Street businesses to provide an update on the project, discuss the potential construction timeline, and project impacts. And if the project moves forward, staff tends to hold additional meetings with the businesses to keep them informed on the status of the project. So subject to a positive committee recommendation, this PUD plan approval ordinance would be placed on the City Council agenda for action. And the ordinance would grant the zoning approval for the PUD plan. The ordinance would not authorize funding or construction of the project. So once the plan is approved, staff would solicit bids to better understand the project cost. And so I can now answer any questions relative to the application. We also have Pete Sewer from Public Works Department who can speak to questions regarding the plan itself.
Thank you, Russell. I'll open up to questions. I see no questions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Nobody made a move.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, Rita, if you want to go first.
No, I just want to reiterate, Russ, that it kind of said it in the recommendation on the executive summary, and you said it again, and a better understanding of project costs is really critical to taking our next steps. So nothing's automatic. Nothing is further approved besides the plan, correct?
That's correct.
And there'll be no issue down the road. We find out that it's, through the roof costs, that we can break it down or we can say put on hold or whatever, right? That still depends on the costs.
Correct. That is really to be approved by the council at a later stage.
Great. Thank you.
Go ahead, David.
I mean, to dovetail with what Rita asked, and I appreciate her asking that, I agree as well. I've had some concerns about going down the PUD path. I guess my question would be, how come we can't, educate me here, why can't we just provide to a contractor what we already have in terms of a concept and ask them to give us bids with that, rather than go through the whole PUD process, and if we have to amend, then we have to go to Plan Commission again, we have to do all this stuff. I mean, isn't it simpler just to do that?
So it's typical that before we would issue a bid for a project, we would have a plan that's been agreed to, just so we don't then have to go back and modify the plan based on getting further along in the discussion after we have the bids back already. The expectation being we wouldn't want to bid the project multiple times.
But again, to Rita's point, just reiterating, we can change this. We're not committed. No funding, no commitment to funding. If it's like $1 zillion, we can amend it and just go through the process again.
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
So I concur with what my colleagues have said about the funding aspect. I do have concerns about it. So looking forward to the bids, getting those back. So I have some questions, I think, for Peter regarding the bidding process. So are you able to then get those bids broken down, like say one for the street component and then one for the plaza, maybe the whole thing? Is that possible?
It's possible in a way. We fell a little short of the desire to get, for example, a specific bid for the Egg Plaza and a separate bid for the street. But what we are going to be asking for from the contractors are a breakdown of their entire costs so that we can use that data to really create any answers you need in regards to cost, what each component of the project costs.
Okay.
So we'll have that information. It just won't be as simple as a bid for particular units of the project.
Okay. And then as far as the drop-off point, because I asked the question about a month ago, about a half circle. Obviously, it's just too much to do that. Do you agree there can be a drop-off point somewhere over there?
Yeah, we've actually spent a lot of time on that in the last 3 weeks. And I think we've got a really pretty slick proposal for that we've worked on. In essence, it really doesn't change the scope of the project at all, the design at all. We're simply taking the bollards that used to be up along the street and pulling them backwards into the site a little bit more. So in essence, it creates a drop-off zone for cars to maneuver off of the street into that area. You could probably stack 3 to 4 cars in that space, and it's a perfect location for a little drop-off.
So how
it will not be a turnaround.
Okay, that's fine.
As long as that in.
Yeah, as long as there's somewhere the ability for people to be dropped off, I think that's great. So how long will it take to get bids?
So bids, we're planning on going out to bid next week. The drawings are just about ready. The specifications are ready, and we're finalizing the bid documents. So we typically like to see these type of projects out for about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Review the bid for another couple weeks after that, and we'll be most likely in front of this committee again in February. End of February.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question. There was a meeting apparently on Wednesday with business owners. So what was the context of that meeting, and how did that meeting go? I don't know if that Derek would.
So in December, I did go along First Street and just meet with the business owners there and just to let them know that we're in the middle of this process. And then staff thought it would also be a good idea just to get them all together in the same room, give an update, say where we're at in the process, and also was kind of a listening session. We wanted to hear what their concerns were, if there was anything that the city could do to make their life easier if this does move forward and there is construction next year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Generally, what would you how would you summarize the feedback?
Yeah, I can't summarize them all together like they all felt the same way, but I would generally say it was almost broken down in between 2 sections. You had the restaurants that would be, this plaza is going to be adjacent to where their business is right now. They, of course, have more concerns because they're going to be more impacted for the better or for the worse. So they're going to get the benefit, but next year during construction, that's going to be a concern. And then also the outdoor dining component of it. They would like to see that plan eventually come to fruition, and they want to know what that is going to be sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. Understanding that's a big part of their business, and with COVID going on, a lot has changed with outdoor dining. When you go further south, where they won't be quite as impacted, it was mainly positive about the plaza. They would like to see it happen, understanding that it may hurt their business a little bit during the construction, but for the most part, it was positively received when I spoke to them.
Okay. So this, what we're doing tonight basically is just we're approving basically a concept, and what's before us. We're not, just to concur with my colleagues, is we're not funding anything, we're not paying for anything, we're just saying, hey, we're validating we're okay with the plan, with the concept. That's what we're doing tonight, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, my question was on the timeframe of the bid, so it was already answered.
Sorry. It might be for Derek. Oh, sorry. Ed, did you want to go? No, I thought Ed had a question.
Go ahead.
Derek, or Peter, whomever. So I hear you saying and I appreciate you having that meeting, of course, looping them in. You mentioned that you would keep them in the loop, but are you also planning, I assume so, but just want to hear it from you, planning to incorporate any thoughts or changes or ideas that might, is it going to be a two-way conversation moving forward with the business owners?
Yeah, of course, we're looking to move forward with a design, so we're not looking for ideas that are completely going to change it, but if there's something that we can accommodate, and that could be something along the lines of how the plaza is programmed, certainly we can do that. And as far as keeping them in the loop, if this does move forward, we want to have continue to have meetings with them. For example, we were talking about if we do select a contractor, and that is approved, we would actually bring that contractor in to have him or her come and meet with the businesses so that they have an exact timetable of what would be under construction when, so that they can plan appropriately.
And we're anticipating this coming to council on the 17th. Is that right? The next council
meeting, correct.
60.
Okay. Todd, you have another question?
Yeah, so just a quick question for Peter. Remind me again, I know we talked about this. So if the planets align and we're good to go, we've got the preliminary concept approved, there's no need to amend because of phasing. What's the construction horizon?
We're estimating 9 months.
9 months.
We're hoping it would get better, but, and we feel that that's a little bit conservative, but considering the conditions out there, especially in regards to ordering material and backlog, we felt like that's a pretty solid time frame now.
What's the absolute soonest, do you think, if you had the go-ahead, that it would start?
I think we've kind of set ourselves up into a position where we will start as soon as the weather breaks and allows us to this spring. And that all is dependent on Mother Nature. That being said, the sooner we can get this approved, the quicker the contractor can start ordering materials.
Yeah. So
and that's a big part of this project.
And you mean like this spring, like
this spring?
January, February, March.
This spring.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, Brian.
So, Peter, has there been any projection on the annual maintenance costs for the plaza? Do you have any estimates on what that cost will be and how that will be paid for?
Yeah, we did take a look at that because that was a question that came up earlier. I can't remember if it was this committee or Plan Commission. It's going to be one of those things that the maintenance cost for the actual elements within the plaza will start off as zero because they're brand new. Eventually we'll need to, for example, repaint the steel trellis 20 years from now or 15 years from now. So, those costs will kind of endure as the project proceeds. But in regards to actual maintenance costs on day one, this is a plaza unlike any that it's very similar to the plazas we currently have. So it's kind of an extension of the work that we already do on the West Plaza and other downtown areas. Snow plowing, for example. General cleanup of garbage, the plantings that we have. We estimated that cost somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 annually.
Annually.
For the addition to this plaza.
Does that include the solar panels in case they?
Yeah, again, solar panels, they should have a life span of 20 years. And the unique part about us owning our own electric utility is that we should forever be, if we're part of IMEA, get those solar panels for free through grants, through that program.
Peter, may I make one comment too? This is obviously a project that Initiative was involved in, and this is also something that, again, we received another donation just the other day for $10,000. So it is something that funding can continue to be raised for it on an annual basis. So it's not like the Initiative just stops. They move on to other projects, but this is still a project that someone can annually give to, and people are. So that can cover some of the costs for the maintenance as well.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Go ahead, David.
Speaking of the cost, this might be a question for Heather. Does there exist some sort of memo, like an MOU or some sort of documentation that breaks down codifies essentially the relationship between the city and the initiative in terms of identifying costs or anything like that?
So we do have a document that discusses the actual fundraising element of this. If you're looking for a more specific breakdown of once the project's complete, the city would maintain ownership and responsibility of the maintenance of the project.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. No more questions? I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the PUD preliminary plan.
Move for approval.
Moved by Todd, seconded by Lencioni. Roll call vote, please.
Kulturitis,
Yes.
Calamaris,
Yes.
Payleitner,
Yes.
Bongard,
Abstain.
Bancroft,
Yes.
Lencioni,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Festner.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up, we have a presentation from Ellen regarding the St. Charles Housing Trust Fund.
Good evening. So tonight I'm going to be providing some background information on the city's Housing Trust Fund and also asking for feedback on use of the trust fund moving forward. The city adopted the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance back in 2008, which requires residential developments to incorporate a percentage of affordable units or to pay a fee in lieu thereof. Fee in lieu payments are placed into the city's Housing Trust Fund, and use of that fund is limited under the city code to uses that create and preserve affordable housing. The city has 3 programs that make use of the trust fund. We have a home rehab loan program, a first-time homebuyer loan program, and we participate in the Kane County Affordable Housing Fund, which offers development financing to affordable housing developers. I'll talk a little bit more about the Affordable Housing Fund since it's the most significant use of the Housing Trust Fund. The Kane County Affordable Housing Fund is a combination of federal funds that the county receives for acquisition, rehab, and new construction of affordable rental and homeownership units within Kane County. The Affordable Housing Fund is administered by the Kane County Office of Community Reinvestment, and developers apply to Kane County for funding on an annual basis. The city joined the county's fund in 2018 by contributing $416,000 of the city's Housing Trust Fund in an effort to make the city funds available to developers seeking to construct affordable housing in town. The city's funds have been offered as part of the county's pool of funding each year for the past 4 years. 3 projects have been funded in St. Charles. We have 2 purchase rehab projects and 1 new construction home. These projects receive both city and county funds. A total of $262,000 remains in the county's Affordable Housing Fund from the city's initial allocation. Now back to the city's Housing Trust Fund. Our total balance stands at $1.97 million. This includes a $1.2 million contribution from the Springs apartment development, which we just received in November. Now, the city has earmarked $73,000 of this to the home rehab and first-time home buyer program, and then, as I said, the additional $262,000, which is within the Kane County Affordable Housing Fund now. So the net current balance, taking that into account, is $1.6 million, and we do anticipate additional developer contributions into the fund this year, upwards of $500,000, based on the residential developments that have been approved. There are several opportunities for the continued and future use of the Housing Trust Fund, and we wanted to highlight 3 items. The first being Anthony Place 2, which is the senior affordable housing project. There's a request to be discussed this evening for additional city funding for that project through the Kane County Affordable Housing Fund. The next is future participation in the county's Affordable Housing Fund. The city may choose to allocate additional funds from the Housing Trust Fund to be made available to developers. The funds may be continued to be allocated for any qualifying projects in St. Charles, or the city could place parameters on this funding to target certain locations in town or certain types of projects. The county expects to release its next call for projects this June. And finally, potential for reimbursement of fee waivers. The Inclusionary Housing Ordinance does offer development cost offsets as a way to incentivize construction of affordable units. This includes waiver of all permit fees, utility connection fees, and impact fees. The city could look into using the Housing Trust Fund to offset some of the costs of these incentives to affordable developers. That's all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions tonight and to hear your feedback on use of the fund moving forward.
Thank you for the update. Is there any questions from the council up here regarding the update? No? Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Brian.
I noticed on page, I don't know if it's page 3, you have 2 red boxes. Are you asking for our feedback on those?
No, this is just for reference. This is just laying out a flow chart of the process of the city and county's collaboration for the Affordable Housing Fund. It's just kind of laying out the process for your information of how that typically works.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Oh,
All right.
something, sorry.
ahead.
Again, this came to my mind right now. I mean, if you're asking for some feedback, I would, again, I know we're not deciding this now, but, possibly considering putting more, because what did you say, 73,000 in the first-time homebuyer program, perhaps increasing that or allocating to more senior types of living, perhaps. Just something I'm throwing out there we could focus on in St. Charles.
Go ahead, Todd.
So I think last time, our last meeting, we had a discussion about some of the real estate tax relief that's available to developers who decide to build the affordable housing. And you said the Springs put $1.2 million in there, so I'm assuming that was their fee in lieu, right?
Yes.
So the question is are they aware of, what the relief could be at a state level from real estate tax? And could they reconsider building the affordable housing? Because I'll be honest with you, I mean, from my standpoint, we can put a bunch of money in a trust.
Yep.
It goes nowhere, it does nothing. We wind up kind of spewing it out here and there.
We need the inventory.
And we really could use the inventory. And so if somebody could go back to them and say, hey, have you looked at the real estate tax component? And put on the table, we give them the $1.2 million back if they built the 20%. Just a thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they are aware of that incentive, but they have paid the fee, and we could go to them with that information if you.
We can reinitiate that. We have had that discussion with them. I know that was actually one of the first things I did when I joined city staff. So they are aware of it and they know the availability of funds, but we can certainly revisit that with them again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That was just an update. No action was needed on that item. So we can now move along to item 4C, which is actually a viable project to consider funding. Go ahead.
Thank you. GC Housing Development has applied for Kane County Affordable Housing Fund financing to assist in funding Anthony Place 2, which is a 60-unit affordable apartment building to be age-restricted to residents ages 55 and over. The project is located on the south side of Route 38 between Randall and Richer Roads. The city approved zoning entitlements and plans for this project back in 2021. GC Housing Development previously constructed Anthony Place 1 within Prairie Center. Last summer, Kane County approved preliminary funding for the project in the amount of $724,000 from the Kane County Affordable Housing Fund. It was anticipated that this amount would be divided between the county and city funds, but the exact amount was not finalized. The funding approval was contingent upon low-income housing tax credits being awarded from Illinois Housing Development Authority. In December, IDA did approve the preliminary application for Anthony Place 2, and GC Housing Development is now in the process of preparing their final tax credit application, which is due in February. GC is now requesting additional funding from the Kane County Affordable Housing Fund. The funding request has increased from the initial amount of $725,000 to $2.2 million. This constitutes 10% of the project's total development cost, which is $22.3 million. Reasons for the additional funding gap include higher construction costs and interest rates. Staff from Kane County have reviewed GC's application, and they've provided a staff report, which is included in the packet. The county is recommending the project be awarded the full $2.2 million in the form of a 0% interest loan to be paid back after 20 years. County staff will be requesting Kane County Board approval of half of this amount from the county side, $1.1 million from the county. They'll be requesting that from the board in February. And to cover the full funding gap, the city would also need to contribute $1.1 million. The city would also pay a 2.5% administrative fee to the Kane County Office of Community Reinvestment per the intergovernmental agreement we have with the county. Now, typically, the city's Housing Commission approves the city's end of funding for projects funded by the Affordable Housing Fund, but there's only $262,000 remaining from the city's initial allocation into that fund. So the city council would need to allocate an additional $865,000 from the city's Housing Trust Fund in order to cover that the full $1.1 million. If the city does choose to fund Anthony Place as requested, the Housing Trust Fund would have a remaining balance of $772,000. As previously mentioned, with the anticipated developer contributions for this year, we would expect the trust fund to soon then have a remaining balance of $1.29 million. The Housing Commission discussed the request last week at their meeting. They voted 5-0 to approve $1.1 million in funding from the Housing Trust Fund, subject to council approval of the additional allocation into the King County Affordable Housing Fund. The commissioners expressed support for the project. They felt that the project is a productive use of the fund, given the number of units that will be created, and they noted this project would mark the first multifamily development funded by the trust fund. And I can now turn it over to GC, their representatives here this evening, to discuss the project.
Thank you. For the record, just please state your name when you present.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shalon Shears, and I represent GC Housing Development. And joining me tonight is Andrew Block, the president of GC Housing Development and also Crane Construction Company, and also Brendan Goss, right there, who oversees our residential commercial division of construction. So as Ellen mentioned, the reason for our request tonight is to see if the city will approve an additional allocation from the Housing Trust Fund into the King County's Affordable Housing Program. The main reason for our request, as Ellen mentioned, is that in putting together our proposed project budget and application, we have been contending with a significant financial gap, mainly due to increased construction costs and also due to the increased costs of using conventional lending and financing to help fund affordable housing projects of this nature. And so we have been going through an ongoing exercise between the development team, which consists of GC Housing Development, Crane Construction Company, our project architect, which is Hooker DeYoung, to see where we can try to find significant cost savings. The main issues that we've been contending with focus on increased construction costs, and there have been a significant increase of at least 8% over the past several months in all trades across the board when we look at our construction budget. As it relates to our particular project, there were a few areas where we're running into significant costs. And so just to name some of those areas, particularly carpentry and lumber, roofing, fire protection, plumbing, concrete, and concrete products, with the most significant increase to our construction budget being with concrete and concrete products. And so the reason for this construction costs or anything having to do with issues with supply chain delivery, issues with increased costs because of the pandemic that's been ongoing, issues with certain materials, which increases in those with lack of resources that provide to maintain and manufacture those materials. And so I brought Brendan Goss here tonight to answer any specific questions that you have regarding the construction budget and why we're running into issues with certain material costs and things of that nature. So in our exercise of trying to figure out cost savings, some of the tasks that we have been trying to do have been going back, looking at the construction budget line item by line item to see where we can try to identify cost savings. So that does involve our construction team working with various trades and vendors on an ongoing basis, talking to them to trying to see where the latest pricing is and where pricing may be by the time that, if this project is able to move forward, by the time we're able to begin construction in 2024. Another task that we are doing is we're also looking into seeing, based on what we think our proposed specs will be for this building, to see where we may be able to utilize alternative materials, alternative approaches that can help provide some cost savings to the construction budget. And then also, recently, IDA has issued a new policy for stored materials and reimbursement on materials. And so we're trying to see if we can find some cost savings there in the sense of whether there's some materials we're able to purchase using today's prices, anticipating that maybe some of those materials will be much more expensive a couple years now from when we're ready to begin construction. So those are some of the actions that we are taking right now. We're also investigating any other avenues, but those are the main tasks that we're focused on right now to try to identify some savings. So, again, we submit this request for the committee's consideration for an increased allocation from the trust fund into the King County Fund to help address our current budget gap.
Thank you, Ms. Shears. I do have a question for you. What is the, if there is, the waiting list currently for Anthony Place that's there right now?
Sure. So in December, the waiting list was at 138.
Okay.
And, we're happy to say that since 100% leased up, our waiting list has been well over 100 persons.
And what is the turnover ratio in those, you typically see in those units throughout the length of stay, I guess you could say, how long people utilize?
Yes, and you can join in, but I'll start off by saying that because our properties are affordable senior properties, thankfully our seniors are very happy and satisfied, so they tend to stay. And so if there's any turnover, it's either due because it is an independent living property that they need some level of assisted living, or unfortunately they become deceased.
Thank you.
The other thing I would add, I'm Andy Block, by the way. Thank you for allowing us to present today. As Shalon talked about it, our phase one, I don't know how familiar you are with our first project here at the Prairie Center. We would consider it successful, and we are excited about the opportunity to bring in phase two, hopefully, to St. Charles. To your question about the wait list, that's passive. I mean, that's just people coming to us and asking to be put on a list. There's not active marketing because the property leased up within 2 months. And the vast majority of affordable housing properties lease up very quickly. And if they don't, there's typically something wrong with the way it was built or something along those lines.
How many units does GC Housing Development currently own? Is it all across the country, or?
It's regional. We have 81 units in Glendale Heights. We have 56 units in Ottawa. We have 51 units in Yorkville and 75 units here in St. Charles. We are minority partners on 136 units down in the Chatham neighborhood of Chicago. But for the most part, we focus our efforts on the western suburbs and the exurb counties.
What is your current square foot to build, with all the new construction costs? What do you estimate it costs?
I'm not sure I did Brendan. Yeah. Right now, you're seeing anywhere from $205 to $210 for a square foot for that type of the building. One of the larger costs that has increased dramatically is the precast concrete, pre-made concrete that is required. I think one of the best amenities that you have for the seniors is the indoor parking for them, and that creates the 4-hour separation of garage to residential, and that price has gone up considerably at double in the last 2.5 to 3 years. I know Shalon spoke to, the numbers that have gone up, but, something that like I do, I follow the lumber prices per square foot every day. That's kind of come back down, right? So that's come down, so that's giving us hope. In the same sense, I got an email when I was driving out here saying that, drywall 2 years ago was 35 cents a square foot furnished and delivered to the site. Today, I got an email 66 cents. So trying to keep up with that is what is hitting our issues.
Yep. Yeah.
Go ahead, Rita.
Yep. Thank you. I want to concur on the success of Anthony Place 1. Great project. Thank you. Ellen, a quick question. Maybe you guys know this. I don't know. Did we contribute housing trust funds for Anthony Place 1? No, we didn't. It wasn't needed. We didn't do that. Okay, good. Thank you.
If you'd like, I can give some of the reasons why. I know you weren't answering that question.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, no.
It costs these tax credits.
Yeah.
So if you were to tax credits from IDA, the Illinois
Right.
Development Authority. We then take these tax credits and sell them,
Right.
typically to big banks. We use them to offset Community Reinvestment Act, CRA credit, or to high net worth or Fortune 500 companies to help offset their tax liability. The cost that we, it's truly a dollar per dollar tax credit. Back in the day, you used to get 96 cents, 97 cents on the dollar. That's gone down to 91 cents, 92 cents.
Okay.
That's the big problem.
Okay, great, thank you. And as far as a St. Charles-centric question, Ellen, if another project came up, like say at the mall or something else, where there's another affordable housing opportunity, will this at all get in the way, or what do you think? No problem?
In terms of the city's end of the funding?
Yes, right.
Yes, we would still have that 1.2.
If needed, but you don't think that this would be prohibitive of getting any future projects?
Yeah, I mean, this project, if it is awarded tax credits, I know Ida looked at, other issues, your 2006 statute.
Yeah, no, he did great.
We would, look at the other projects in St. Charles location.
Okay, future projects, well, yeah, right, great, thank you, that was my understanding as well. Thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks. This is a question for everybody, but probably Ellen. Is there any, in taking a look at the pro formas and the gap analysis, are there, for receiving grants and the rest of it, are there any standards for pro formas as far as profit models and cost allocations and the rest? Because taking a look at it, we're using, developer funds from one place and helping, maintain profitability and doability in this project, but taking a look, I couldn't get a sense on, how profitable is this, how much are we funding, I don't understand where the balances are because I don't understand the industry that well, but part of it is, we're using public funds to allow private companies to have a profitable product, and I was just wondering if there's any guidance on what the P&L models should look like as far as profit element per size.
The county does have, King County staff reviews the pro forma, they does do that analysis. They did provide a cost per unit based on the construction cost, and they found that cost per unit is comparable to other projects that have been approved within the county in the last 6 years. And I know the IDA, through their tax credit requirements, we had affordability requirements, and we can't be targeted to different income classifications, so they can't charge more than a certain amount for those units. So income is restricted, so it's meaning that the rest is restricted.
No, understood. I'm just taking a look at, and I mean, private businesses, you should make a profit. Everybody's got to feed their families, but it's always a balance on, how much incentive, to allow how much profit, and those are things that I'm looking for guidance on.
So, great question. We are a for-profit company.
Of course.
We do have a nonprofit partner involved.
Mm-hmm.
IDA has very strict guidelines on what our contractor can charge as a fee, what our contractor can charge in general conditions and overhead. IDA is very strict on what you can charge as your developer fee. IDA and Ellen talked about, government, HUD determines what rents we can charge.
Mm-hmm.
So almost every developer, for the most part, their pro forma is within a what your developer fee is for the developer, what your fee is for the contractor. And developers aren't really for-profit developers aren't in this industry for a cash flow, if you will. If you look at, I believe you've all been provided a pro forma that King County received. The cash flow is trying to keep a debt coverage ratio between 1.15 and 1.30.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a small narrow window.
No, it did. I was looking, and you hit it. I mean, I wanted to make sure that the pro forma that you gave, because I don't understand them and I don't know them, there's approval for what the developer fee level, is, because obviously, this has got to make sense for you. But, in taking a look at it, I had those questions as we're providing public funds, and zero interest loans, so you can do something on a business. I just was looking for some understanding of what rigor it had to go through, as far as profit models and things like that to come here. So I was comfortable.
A couple other things to consider. Some developers, you know, they come in, they're turnkey, they build and they sell it off, and then they're not involved in development anymore. We are signing guarantees that for a minimum of 30 years, this will remain an affordable property. And it is very rare, I mean, it happens where after that 30-year period is up, that it would convert to a marketplace. Typically, whether it's us still involved or another party has bought the property, you then apply for more tax credits to rehabilitate the property. And if you're moving to another 30 years affordability requirement. So it does, the program achieves what it was intended for.
And I just want to add one thing. So the Bible for what is restricting us to all of these different underwriting standards is called the Qualified Allocation Plan that IDA issues on every 2 years.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Todd.
So I was just going to help with some of the questions. So I've been in the industry for multifamily, both condos and rentals, for 35 years. I do not understand your business at all. But it comes down to a couple of quick math things. So what does it cost per unit to build this?
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in and say, but IDA has certain limits of what a unit can cost. I believe they just upped it to like a 2-bedroom the construction cost could be, I think it was like $270,000. And that's something I've been arguing with them, because if it's in the city of Chicago, they get 20% more than the collar counties.
Right. And then
it's just not real.
So the $270,000 2-bedroom, what is it that you can rent that for? What are your income requirements, and what is the actual rent?
Pro forma.
Just real quick. I mean, it doesn't need to be to the penny.
The rents range well, then we got to get into, most of our units are for those that make 30% or less of the area median income. Another portion of the units are for those that make 60% of the area median income. Another portion are 80%. And there's, so they probably range from about $400 on the low end for the 30% one bed, probably $1,100.
Yeah. So yes, I can't read the spelling. My reading glasses on, so I'm just guesstimating. Okay. Yeah. So for the 30% immediate area median income units, it's about $400, and then for the 80% area median income units, it's about
goes up to $1,700.
$1,700.
At 80% of area median income.
So to give you a sense, Paul, on a pure market basis, $2.50 a foot rent to go vertical in some fashion somewhere, and they're at best half that, not even half that. So that's where the subsidy component of it comes in.
Our unit sizes are about 750 square feet for 1 bedroom and about 1,100 square feet for 2 bedrooms.
So for the 30% AMI, it's less than $1 a foot.
You know what? And turning it into market terms actually helps quite a bit. Market to build, market to rent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ryan, did you have a question?
So the reason for the request is the cost of construction has gone up.
That's one of the big reasons.
That's it. So without that, we wouldn't be here, correct? The request wouldn't be made.
The request would probably be lower. We would still be here because the cost of the tax credit, so we can sell the tax credit has gone down. But that and interest rates are the largest driving factors.
So conceptually, could you wait?
So one thing I was going to add to what Shalon said is our request is up to $2.2 million. When it comes time to actually, we're fortunate enough to be allocated tax credits, when we close and we lock in a contract with Crane Construction, our hope is that lumber has gone down and stabilized, that concrete has stabilized, and the overall pro forma development budget has gone down. So hopefully that $2.2 million is then 1.9. I'm saying the reason why we cannot wait is because this application that goes in February 16th, you need to detail all your funding sources. We are competing against, for a Chicago Metro set aside, probably 20 other developments. They'll award 6 or 7 of those funds. And that's not, sorry to jump on the development side, but that's not just senior or that's all affordability across family, supportive housing, elderly.
Well, I could just say, prior to being here, I used to be a commissioner in King County, and one of the committees I was on has to do with the housing. And I know that to get to this stage, there's a lot of contingencies that have to happen to get approved. So it's very difficult to have a project that actually all lines up the right way, and I'm very happy that we do have funds to be able to hopefully help you out with this. So.
Just to be clear, I mean, we're not talking about a award, we're talking about a zero-interest loan that'd be paid back? Okay.
That's right. So, Ellen, you need a recommendation for us to move this forward, correct? Yes. Brian, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say that there's an obvious need in our community for affordable housing for our seniors, so I support what you're doing. So that's thank you.
Phase one was a wonderful part of the community. Phase two, we had more housing stock. As we've seen on more development, 85% or more of the residents come from within like a 5 or 10 mile radius. There's this misconception about who lives in these buildings, and community members that retire and are on pension.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I just want to support what Alderman Warble said, and also Steve, of course. I used to sit on the Housing Commission, so, I mean, I support this, and there's a need, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're not working with
And maybe nicer weather than the last one. It was really crummy, if you recall. It was really crummy, yeah. Yeah.
So with that, is there any more questions?
Just on the motion, I'd like to make sure we say up to 2,210,336, up to. That way, if it's less, it will be less.
I just want to make sure we have all the correct numbers.
Yeah, it's because of the other half
Our
of
half.
the county.
So if it's less, not to exceed 1.1
So are you
million.
making a motion then not to exceed?
I'll make that motion
Okay.
not to exceed 1.1 million.
Second.
And we will know, like you said before, if you can cut down construction costs without sacrificing quality, then that number, your request will be reduced by that amount, correct? Dollar for dollar, literally, correct?
I don't know,
I'm
there's a lot of variables. I don't know if we can say definitively yes, but if construction costs stabilize, the way the building is currently designed, costs would go down. We can't put a dollar.
Oh, I don't expect, no, I'm not asking for a dollar figure, but just as long as it won't go up, that's my key.
Okay, so we have a motion to go up to 1.1 million, seconded by Petrilla. Can I please have a roll call?
Simonkowitz.
Yes.
Calamaris.
Yes.
Laylertner.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Bancroft.
Yes.
Lencioni.
Yes.
Petrillo.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Plessner.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Yep. Ellen, item 4D, inclusionary housing fee.
Okay. The inclusionary housing fee is set by the City Council on an annual basis. This is the fee required of developers who choose not to construct affordable units, but rather to pay the fee in lieu. The current IHO fee has been in place for the past 2 years. It has a 3-tier structure based on housing type. For multi-family developments, the fee is highest. It's $39,666 per required affordable unit. For townhome developments, the fee is $27,766 per required affordable unit. And for single-family developments, the fee is lowest at $15,866 per required affordable unit. These fees were calculated based on the cost of a different percentage down payment for a home at the affordable home price identified by IDA. IDA releases this figure every 5 years as part of its update on statewide local government affordability, and the next report is expected to be released this December. So we would anticipate updating the fees based on that new number. Housing Commission discussed the fee at their January 5th meeting and recommended keeping the current fees in place. Staff has not experienced issues with administering these fees. Developers of current residential projects underway have either paid the fee or expect to do so in the coming months.
Thank you. Any questions regarding this? Go ahead, Ryan.
Ellen, how do we compare to surrounding communities with our fee structure?
So we are only one of 8 communities in Illinois that have an inclusionary housing ordinance. So we are one of only 8 that require this fee in lieu to be paid. We're the only one in the Fox Valley. Geneva has a voluntary program, but they do not collect a fee. In terms of the fees that are collected from those other 7 communities that have mandatory programs, fees range from $40,000 per unit to $130,000 per required affordable unit. So we are on the low end of that. None of the other communities have a tiered structure. However, they're all structured a little bit differently in terms of, what types of developments the fees apply to. Some do not collect fee for single family, but instead collect like a demolition tax for tear downs. Some apply the fees to only certain size developments, so it's not really an apples to apples comparison.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? No? So
Move for approval.
Move for approval to keep everything consistent the way it
Yep,
is.
as is.
So moved by Rita, second by Bessner. Did you?
No, go ahead.
Oh, Brian, second by Brian. Wirball. Roll call, please.
Kulturitis?
Yes.
Calmaris?
Yes.
Leitner?
Yes.
Baumgart?
Yes.
Bancroft?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Petrillo?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
That motion carries. Now we have public comment. Any public comment? Seeing, yes, public comment? Okay, please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Paul McMahon at 3rd and Chestnut. So again, I'm part of this Citizens for Responsible Development. I guess I've got some really simple questions, and we've talked about budget and cost on the original First Street project. How many bids do you expect to get, and do you know who those bidders are, or is that TBD, or?
There's no way we can determine that until we release the bidding. There's no way we can determine that until we release the bid and get the bids back.
Right, so it's more than one, it's gonna be multiple.
It depends on who responds to it.
And do you have an idea who that might be?
No, we will release the bid, and then it will open it up to invitation to bid.
And the bidders will be contractors. Who did the who did the original renderings, which are really nice? We like the renderings, it looks good. Is that an architecture firm or a contracting firm?
There was an architect.
So is that firm gonna be one of the bidders as well?
I mean, that's generally not how it works. It would be a construction company that would bid out the actual construction of the project, not the architect that designed it.
So you'll have multiple bids, ideally?
Yes.
Okay. And then, when you get those bids, won't there be a redesign phase when you get the bids? There'll still be a discussion about whether you do it all at once or do it in phases, but might there be a redesign phase where you say, this is too expensive, this comes in, that goes out, if it's menu pricing?
I'm not really comfortable going that far down the process until we actually get the bids back and see what the numbers pan out to be.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional items from the mayor, council, or staff? Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I just want to get an update on, I think it's building number 8, lot 4 on the corner of Illinois and 31. I think the last update we had was March of last year, so it's been a while. So I think there's a redevelopment agreement. It's been out there for over 4 years. So it'd be great if we can get that on the agenda for the next P&D meeting. And then I was reading over the redevelopment agreement about the signage on the city property. So there's some language on page 14 that maybe staff can review regarding the signage as well. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I concur with that. I'd like to see us, at least, we talk about the next meeting, next P&D meeting.
Okay.
In February, discuss it and see, get an update from staff on what the status is of this project and property.
We do have that plan for the next agenda. Our city attorney is reviewing a few things regarding the termination of that agreement that we needed to get in line before presenting to P&D.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no need for executive session, I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second.
So moved by Wirball, second by Petrillo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually behind the parking lot.